Good morning. I'm the Reverend Sasha Ostrom, the minister here at the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and it is wonderful to be with you once more as we gather together for worship, for lifting up that which is of worth in this great common life that we all share. And as we settle in for the hour, let's go ahead and pause and center our minds and hearts around this month's theme of cultivating compassion. And we begin with words today by the Reverend Laura Horton Ludwig. And please join me now in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Spirit of life and love, light within and without, mystery from which we have all emerged, within which we live and die. Be with us now as we allow ourselves to drop into the silence and stillness at the center of our being. As people of faith, we seek to live in a spirit of love, a spirit of community, justice, and peace. And yet, in so many corners of the world, both far and near, we see divisiveness and hate. If we look deep inside ourselves, perhaps we will even find those shadow energies there too. We struggle to respond to the outer world and our inner dramas in ways that manifest love. At times we may feel fear that love will not be strong enough. At times we may question whether love really is at the root of all things in this world with so much struggle and suffering and discord. We may struggle to hold on to that faith in love, knowing that if all things come from one source, as we proclaim, the source must somehow hold hate as well as love, violence as well as peace, evil as well as good. And this is the mystery in which we all live and die. These are the questions that haunt our days and nights, and yet we are not without hope. Our struggles and our questions testify to our longing for peace and love. Our very longings are born out of that mystery we dare to address as the spirit of life and love. In the stillness and silence of our own heart, we read the imprint of love, created not by our own will, but planted there for us to discover by what or whom we cannot know, and yet it is there, a clue, a talisman, a beacon, a light within. May it keep hope alive, even as we dwell in mystery. May it guide us all as we seek to act wisely and well. May it help us to be vessels of compassion for one another and for our world. Amen. And come, my friends, and let's worship together.
Good morning. I'm Tanya Van Order, your worship associate today. It's now time to light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And I have a volunteer, Dylan, who's going to come forward to help light our chalice flame. Our chalice lighting words today are by the Reverend Deanna Vandiver. As we light a chalice, a container of air, earth, and fire, this ritual of our faith reminds our subtle and crashing about beings that we are part of a collective, a community of care and connection, courage and questions, scared and sacred together. Today we gather with intention and creativity, releasing what we must, shaping what we will, in a space made possible by generations of community care and the courage of connection. Now please stand as you're able for our affirmation by James Villa Blake. Please repeat after me. Love is the spirit of this fellowship.
Love is the spirit of this fellowship.
And service is its law.
And service is its law.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another.
And to help one another.
Please remain standing for our opening hymn, hymn number 402, From You I Receive. And if there's any junior worship helpers who would like to come forward to help sing our hymn, you'll need the gray hymnal. Good morning again. It's a joy to welcome you to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whether you're here in the sanctuary, joining us from another room in the building, or tuning in live on YouTube or Facebook, welcome. We're glad you're with us. We're a community of all ages, gathering each week to grow, reflect, and connect. Families, you're especially welcome. Children of all ages belong in our shared worship space. If you'd prefer a little more room to move around or soothe, our family room just outside these doors to the right streams the service live. Childcare is also available for little ones aged 9 months to 5 years in room A of the Gateway Center. Wherever you are, however you're joining us today, we're grateful for your presence. Welcome.
Our story today involves 2 items. Alex, can we get those picture up there? Does anyone know what these items are? There's a thermos over here, an OG Stanley, if you will, and a surfboard. And this thermos is full of hot water. You can't really tell that. And you may not think those 2 things go together, but that's what's involved in our story here. Our story takes place in Iceland, which, for those of you who don't know, is very far up north. I got a map of that. Can you see that, Alex? Well, it's all the way up there. We're down here, right at the border. For those who like maps, down here. And it's way up close to the North Pole there. Further than any point of the continental 48. All right, go back to the other one. So, our story takes place there. In a village there in Iceland, there was a distressing thing that had happened, and someone noticed it and posted it online, and usually posts online are terrible, and everyone should get off of the internet, but this time it's a good thing. There was a post that someone had seen a goose stuck in the ice. And this happens from time to time. It gets a little bit warmer, and then it gets cool, and just at that cool point, a bird may be stuck in there. But this bird was still alive, but stuck in this ice as it was getting cooler. And at that moment, in the good way the internet happens to work, someone who knew something about this saw this post of this goose stuck in there. And so, her name was Kirsten, and she grabbed the things she needed, or at least she thought she did. She grabbed a thermos of hot water and a surfboard. Not 100% sure why Kirsten had a surfboard in Iceland, but she did, and she grabbed it. And she went out there to the ice. Now, let me ask you, why do you think she grabbed those 2 things? Does anyone have an idea of why she would grab a thermos of hot water and a surfboard? Anyone? Melt the ice. And to make sure she doesn't fall through. Very good, yeah. So she melts the ice with the water, and she brings the surfboard. And she brought one more important thing that's not up on here. What else do you think she brought with her? Goodwill. Oh, goodwill, that's a good one. No, but she brought an actual thing, something tangible. Ice pick. An ice pick? No, she brought a friend. That thing, right? So she brought her friend, and she went out there, and she crawled out on the ice with her surfboard just in case she fell through. And she poured the hot water on the ice, and the bird went flying away. Why do you think I tell you that story, besides it's a fun story? Anyone got a thought? Compassion, right? She had compassion for an animal, and she knew what needed to happen, and she grabbed the things she needed, and she went out there and did that. When we do hard things, it's good to have the right stuff to do it with, and a good intention for doing it, right? Now, we might not always need a thermos of hot water or a surfboard. Probably hardly ever need a surfboard to help out folks, right, Bromley? Yeah. But there are tools we need, right? And sometimes we have them, sometimes we have to improvise, sometimes we have to make them. And it's always good to do it with someone else, to have a friend or a community, right? Like we are a community, to do those things together. So, that's what we're going to talk today about, having compassion in our community and having the right tools.
We'll tackle that a little bit later, but right now it's time for our milestones and passages. Actually, in a way, we are tackling this now, having compassion as a community. So sometimes, we come to this place on Sundays with a lot on our hearts. Perhaps a loved one has died or is sick, or maybe you are celebrating a recent recovery after an injury or illness or procedure. Whatever your age and whether you are a member here or you are a newcomer, you can share your joys and your sorrows in our service by filling out our milestones and passages form before 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, and that form can be found in our newsletter. And we also have some paper forms that look like this, that you can fill out on your way in through our doors on Sunday, and then just bring up here to the front. Now, we have a few milestones and passages to share today that people have submitted, so please respond to each of these by saying we hold you in our hearts. And if you are joining us online today, I invite you to participate in our chat. Our longtime member and friend, John Franklin, has moved to the Florham Park Rehabilitation Center on Park Avenue after a time in the ICU. And John would love to receive cards, but he is asking for calls and visits to be arranged through John Solu. We hold you in our hearts, and I have a sheet of paper here I'm going to put over by our chalice for anybody who would like to look up contact information after the service so you can connect with John Franklin. The Donaldson family shares the joy that after being under contract with 4 different houses since May and selling their beloved home in the middle of July, they have finally closed on a new home on October 6th in Long Valley. And this is especially good news because they can now fit more people in for their fresh out-of-the-coop breakfast offered in the spring. So sign up for that at the service auction, and they say, hopefully we will be unpacked by then. We hold you in our hearts. Marjorie Wormsha shares, for the first time since 2020 onset of the COVID pandemic, our fellowship's annual women's retreat reconvened last weekend. 24 women reveled in the rejuvenating, growth-inducing, and adventuresome weekend of camaraderie. Heartfelt thanks to Debbie Rice for her outstanding organization. Yes. With meticulous attention and great care for every aspect to make the experience meaningful and memorable for all who participated. We hold you in our hearts. Diana Hart shares an appreciation this morning as well for the hardworking team who came together to create a wonderful event last night, especially Tim, Barry, Diane, Rita, Jean, Jake, Barbara, Donna, Chef Jesse, and all who contributed to the fine fare at our chili cook-off and feast. It takes a village, and you are the village. We hold you in our hearts. And this morning, Judy Borklund shares that it is with a heavy heart that she wants us to know that her husband, Hans Borklund, is permanently in a memory care unit in Parsippany Care 1. He is being well cared for, and she is adjusting to living alone. The emotional support that her friends and relatives have offered sustains and comforts her, and she hopes to pay it forward in the future. We hold you in our hearts. Let's take a quiet moment now for the prayers and meditations held in the silence of our own hearts. This is a time we take each week to practice something we should perhaps do every day if we can. Take a little bit of time for some silence and meditation. So go ahead and close your eyes, if that's something you're comfortable doing. Let yourself just settle into your chair for a moment. Focus on your breathing, feeling it moving in and out of your chest. Maybe let yourself hear the breaths of the people around you, this community of care that is holding you. Allow yourself to feel the spirit of life and love, which is sometimes referred to as ruach or breath, holding us all in this still moment together. Let's go ahead and take 3 deep belly breaths together and then enter into a moment of silence. Amen, and blessed be. Now let's go ahead and please remain seated as we sing number 86. It's Blessed Spirit of My Life, which you can find in your gray hymnal as well as up on your screen.
Our reading this morning is a poem by Linda Buckmaster. She is the former Atlantic Gulf editor of the commercial fishing magazine National Fisherman and former poet laureate of her small town in Belfast, Maine. The poem is titled Flowering at the Ruins of 7 Churches in Ishmore. Pick a crevice, a homey gap between stones, and make it your own. Grow a life here from wind, rain, and the memories of ancients embedded in limestone. The bees will use you for their sweet honey. The rock will soften under your touch. You will draw moisture from fog and hold it. Your presence will build soil. This is all we have in this life, all we own. a flowering, an opening, a gap between stones for tiny, tender roots. We now come to the time in our service to share our gifts in support of this fellowship and all the good we do together. Your generosity sustains everything we create here: worship, community, justice, and extends beyond our walls. Each week, at least half of our offering supports a local partner living out our Unitarian Universalist values of love, justice, equity, and compassion in the wider world. This morning, we share our offering with New Jersey Together, an organization that challenges ordinary people in New Jersey to identify problems facing their neighborhoods and cities, connecting individuals and organizations to multiply their power, and mobilizing people to bring about change. You can give using the collection plate or the methods listed on your order of service and on the screen. Thank you for all the ways you give and make this community thrive.
All righty, show of hands. Who here went to the No Kings protest yesterday? Thank you for your public witness. That's amazing. That's even more than I expected. That's wonderful. Yes. All right, so another very, very important question. How many of you spotted people dressed as giant frogs or carrying a frog sign or some other frog memorabilia? Wonderful. So I saw a frog meme on social media recently, a great one. Actually, I saw several. A couple of my other favorites included the Amphibians Against Fascism flag bearing the brave green face of a frog. And also, perhaps you've seen the Message from the Frog Resistance, sung by Kermit the Frog to the tune of the Rainbow Connection. But the meme on my mind today features 3 people in inflatable frog costumes standing at a protest with a sign that reads, Portland Frog Resistance. And it is captioned with words from the book of Exodus, chapter 8, verses 2 through 6. But if you refuse to let them go, I will plague your whole country with frogs. The frogs shall come up to you and on your people and all of your officials. So, really, dressing up like a giant inflatable frog at a protest isn't just a revolutionary act, but also religious witness. But it's also a funny, lighthearted act of resistance, and we really need that right now. We need some lightheartedness and joy as we try to slow the nation's rapid descent into fascism. Because frankly, this is a scary time, and it is scary in so many different ways. In fact, one of the scariest things about this time in our nation's history is, in fact, the sheer number of ways in which we are sliding, or one might even say nosediving, right into authoritarianism. And if it seems like something horrible is going on everywhere we turn, that's because it is. And that's not an accident. It is intentional, it is very deliberate, a very deliberate strategy straight out of the authoritarian playbook. Another show of hands. Raise your hands if you have been watching Andor, a Star Wars story. We got a few people. So apparently this is like the nerd section of it. Excellent. So season 1 of the show featured a young intellectual who wrote a spot-on description of how fascism works. And I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the fact that Disney has a great piece of political commentary and education, but that's the world we live in now. So he says, it's so confusing, isn't it? So much going wrong, all that happening so quickly. The pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it, and that is the real trick of the imperial thought machine. It is easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident. And bombarding us with one attack after another, one crisis after another, doesn't just confuse us or pull our attention 1,000 different directions. It also exhausts us. You know, there's a term that's been floating around since the 1990s that you may have heard. It's compassion fatigue. According to Psychology Today, the term was coined by historian Carla Joynson in 1992 and further defined and researched by psychologist Charles Figley, who described it as a state of exhaustion and dysfunction, biologically, physiologically, and emotionally, as a result of prolonged exposure to compassion stress. And during times of political turmoil, when there are crises right and left demanding our time and attention, compassion fatigue becomes a real danger. The constant bombardment of things in need of our compassionate response can sometimes make us want to run away and hide, stick our head in the sand, ignore what's going on, and pretend everything's okay. And even if we don't retreat, compassion fatigue can make us less effective in our work to offer compassion and work for concrete change. It can even make us sick, because compassion fatigue doesn't just deplete us emotionally, but can also deplete us physically as well. And authoritarianism depends on that. Authoritarians need us to be exhausted, too exhausted to fight back effectively. And you can bet that they orchestrate crises at a pace precisely designed to wear us down. And we are easier to control that way. We are facing a kind of war of attrition, and that strategy often works. Now, of course, compassion fatigue, though, isn't just a danger in times of political turmoil, because any exposure, prolonged exposure to other people's pain, can wear us down. It can deplete our inner resources that we need in order to be able to respond compassionately. And people in helping professions are particularly vulnerable to compassion fatigue. If you are a first responder, a healthcare worker, a social worker or a therapist, or someone who works with vulnerable populations, or any helping profession, you have probably heard of compassion fatigue before, and you may have even experienced it yourself. And caregivers can be hit with compassion fatigue as well, whether you are a caregiver for a living or whether you are caring for a family member. But pretty much anyone who is exposed to others' pain for an extended period of time can experience compassion fatigue. And This is true also of any of us who are paying attention to the daily news cycle, and doubly so for any of us who are deeply empathetic. So, compassion fatigue is a sort of secondary trauma, and as such, it can take a whole bunch of different forms, and that's because trauma isn't the same as a trauma response. Each person responds to overexposure to others' pain in a little bit of a different way. So one person might respond by taking a break to replenish themselves and heal. Another person, though, might try to push through the exhaustion and end up burning out, while another individual may stay engaged but numb out, closing their heart to any pain that they witness. All of us are different with different responses when compassion fatigue begins to set in. If your well of compassion is being tapped too often, is maybe starting to run a little bit dry, you might find yourself feeling anxious or overwhelmed. Maybe you will feel hopeless or helpless. Perhaps you'll feel a bit numb and tired, or maybe even a little bit irritable and impatient. And you might find yourself struggling with things like brain fog, or maybe insomnia, or headaches, or digestive problems. We hold stress in so many different places in our bodies. Or you might find yourself feeling really avoidant and isolated, or maybe feeling alone. So compassion fatigue can take on so many different forms. But again, trauma is not the same as our trauma response, and the same is true of secondary trauma and our response to witnessing other people's pain. And that's actually a good thing. It means that compassion fatigue isn't actually inevitable, even though we do have limits on our inner resources. We can be good stewards of our inner resources, even in difficult times, and when we do, we can recover from or even avoid compassion fatigue so that we can keep on offering our caring selves to others. And we will explore some ways to do that a bit soon, but first let's go ahead and pause now as we do here to sing together before returning to our sermon. Our song is number 1031, which is in your blue hymnal, and we also have it, of course, on our screen. It is called Filled with Loving Kindness, and we're going to sing just the first verse for now. So when I was in seminary studying to become a Unitarian Universalist minister, the dean of the school required every student to go through an important exercise to our time there in seminary as well as our future ministries. She handed each of us a worksheet which was divided up into 5 sections, and the worksheet was labeled something like, "How will I care for myself while learning to care for others?" And those 5 sections of that worksheet were physical, mental, emotional, social, and of course spiritual. And in each section, my classmates and I were encouraged to jot down a few concrete commitments that we were going to make about how we would care for ourselves and all the different dimensions of our beings. And I encourage anyone here who wants to be more loving and compassionate to do likewise. And here's the reason why. Because compassion fatigue is a depletion of our personal resources. So it's important for us to keep those resources strong and abundant. But there are some ways that keeping our batteries charged or recharging them when they start running low can be especially helpful when resisting compassion fatigue specifically. Let me give you just 5 of those, one for each section. So physically, don't let the work of compassion get in the way of taking care of your body. Years ago, a colleague shared with me that he goes to the gym every single day, and I was a new minister at the time, and I was shocked because I couldn't see any possible way that I could do likewise. I was too busy. How had he found the time to do that, especially every single day? And his answer stayed with me for years afterward. He said, if you have time to minister to people, you have time to minister to yourself. Because you are a person and you are actually in your own circle of care. You deserve that care every bit as much as everyone else that you minister to. And yet if you do not take care of yourself, you will not be able to give as much. And he said, that's why I begin each day by taking care of myself so I can take care of others. And I took his words to heart, and it took a while to figure out how to make it work, but every day now, before I do anything else, I make sure that I get some exercise in. I go to the gym to do some strength training or cardio, or I go to the ice rink and skate. On my rest day, I at least make sure that I take a walk. It's like the saying that we have all heard so often now that it's cliche, you have to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. So don't let the work of compassion for others get in the way of self-compassion. Make sure you care for your body, exercise, get 8 hours of sleep, eat those nutritious meals, take your medication. You were every bit as much in your circle of care as everybody else, and you deserve to be healthy every bit as much as all the other people that you care for. And our hurting world needs each and every one of us, and it needs us to be strong. So go ahead and pour from a cup that is full, not a cup that is drained. Now, second, in the dimension of spiritual care for ourselves, I recommend engaging in a spiritual practice to help keep yourself spiritually healthy. It's kind of like going to the spiritual gym, your spiritual practice. Now, there are a vast number of spiritual practices that you can adopt, and I encourage you to choose one that feeds your own soul and helps you feel more connected, whole, and aware. Maybe for you that is prayer. Maybe it's gardening or spending time in nature. But whatever it is, do it. But the spiritual practice that can be especially good for resisting compassion fatigue, I think, is mindfulness meditation. It can help to lower our stress levels. It can make us more aware of our own thoughts and emotions. And it can also help us to find peace with them, even if, life is wearing us down a bit and is wearing away a bit at our store of compassion. And here in this congregation, you can engage in mindfulness meditation a few times a month, both in person as well as online. In fact, our next session is this Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Zoom. So I hope some of you might join us there. Now, third, the way to resist compassion fatigue in the mental dimension of our lives, I encourage you to find a therapist if you are feeling overwhelmed by others' pain. And I especially encourage any of us who are in helping professions to work with a mental health professional if, the weight of the world is beginning to feel just a bit too heavy to carry. In fact, one of my colleagues thinks that we should all go to therapists even if we're not struggling, because they can help us to, cultivate some important strategies for caring for ourselves while caring for others before problems arise. And while I don't know if I would personally encourage every single person to go get a therapist, I do think that it is worth, considering if you have the means. Fourth, to care for yourself emotionally while caring for others, I encourage every person to really figure out who you can go to when you have a broken heart. Because the things that inspire our compassion really do sometimes make our hearts hurt. And so we need to know where we can go with that pain. And so it is important to find somewhere, or more specifically someone in your life where you can take your broken heart. Maybe that's a good friend. Maybe it's your spouse or your partner. Maybe it's your grandmother or a sibling. But don't keep it all bottled up inside. Make sure you know who you can go to in your life to find comfort and support, or even just to process, especially when things get hard, because you don't have to do it alone. Now, that's 4 ways that we can take care of the 5 dimensions of our being as we care for others. so we can resist compassion fatigue. And we will explore the fifth dimension here in a moment, but first let's go ahead and pause now again. Let's go ahead and rise and body our spirit this time, and we're going to sing now the second verse of our hymn. All right, so the fifth dimension of ourselves that we want to care for as we care for others is the social dimension of our lives. And in order to resist compassion fatigue, my biggest suggestion is to shift from just a focus on self-care to a focus on community care. And what do I mean by that? So we need to build communities of care, communities of care that for many different reasons, the biggest of which is that simply we cannot do all of the work of offering compassion alone. We need other people. There's so much that needs to be done, and no one person should do it all, especially in today's world. We should be sharing the workload among ourselves of offering compassion, and part of that compassionate work is helping one another recover from and resist compassion fatigue. A few years ago, I experienced a really powerful example in my own life of what it looks like for a community to come together, to not just care for someone, but also to make it possible for them to care for themselves. At the time I was serving as the assistant minister of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, and my senior colleague at the time, who thankfully is no longer in ministry, was the kind of person who thought that bullying and intimidation were good managerial styles. And he emotionally terrorized the entire staff, including me. And so we finally reported him to the UUA Office of Ethics and Safety. Now, in the aftermath of the abuse and the investigation that led to his resignation from the UU ministry, yay, I found myself, in need of healing. And one day a colleague asked me what I needed most in order to heal. And I told her honestly that I needed time away from the church so that I could focus on resting and recovering. But I then quickly said I knew that wasn't really possible. And then she asked me a really important question. She asked what needed to happen in order to make it possible for me to take some time away. And after that conversation, not very long after, in fact, I was off of work for a month of emergency leave to focus on some intense healing that needed to happen. And my local colleagues had divvied up between themselves all of the work of not just one, but two ministers of a large congregation. One of them supervised the staff, another worked with the board, a third offered pastoral care to the board, staff, and congregation who were all reeling from what had happened, and they took turns preaching. And my time away allowed me to heal, but it would not have been possible without community care. I would not have been able to take a month-long leave of absence to engage in self-care without the supportive network of compassionate people who banded together to make self-care possible in the first place. Now, we have something similar here in New Jersey, and that actually doesn't surprise me because two of my colleagues who were there with me in North Carolina are now with me again here in New Jersey. And the program we have here is called Leadership Leaves. It allows ministers and congregations in our area to support one another when any minister in the area takes a sabbatical, which helps make it possible for all of the ministers in our area to take this well-needed rest. And as part of Leadership Leaves, I'll actually be away one Sunday next month and again later this year, preaching at congregations whose ministers will be away on sabbatical. And I will provide their members with pastoral care if needed during those times. And 2 Sunday services at those congregations will actually be provided by our congregation's lay worship leaders. And one day, when I finally earn a sabbatical here, the ministers and the lay people of these other congregations will band together to support us during my time away. And these are just a couple of ways that people can join forces to make it possible for one another to engage in self-care. But another way that we can engage in community care as a whole congregation and resist compassion fatigue together is by building a robust pastoral care network within our congregation. And this helps ensure that everyone among us is cared for while preventing any one person here from succumbing to compassion fatigue. And that's because we all share the work. So here in our fellowship, we have many different teams of volunteers who are working to provide compassionate care in times of need. We have people who offer rides to hospitals or even to services. We have people who cook nutritious homemade meals for people after things like surgeries or births. And we have people who, offer phone calls or visits, including our lay pastoral care associates team. But we can always use more people sharing that work. And the lay pastoral care associates and I are currently busy updating our different teams who offer these different kinds of compassionate care in our congregations. So if you are interested in joining a team to provide an occasional, meal or ride, maybe make an occasional phone call or offer an occasional visit to people in our congregation in need, I invite you to contact me. We would love to strengthen this congregation's caring ministry, and everybody here can be a part of it. And light hands make light work, or many hands make light work. So finally, our congregation's community care cares for one another, not just through our pastoral care systems, but also through our justice ministries as well as our faith formation programs. I don't know if you saw Sophia Betancourt's article in UU World recently about faith formation across our generations. Reverend Betancourt is the president of our Unitarian Universalist Association. She also was one of my professors in seminary. And she wrote, in times like these, the values, the connections, the questions, the thinking and wrestling that we have already done as Unitarian Universalists become urgent. They form a foundation for our living so that when we are faced with devastating situations, ICE snatching our families and neighbors off the streets, policies undermining basic human rights, unceasing violence and war, and politicians working to decimate the social safety networks that have worked so long to create, when all that happens, we can move confidently with our UU values at the forefront in response. Now, her remarks remind me of something that Navy SEALs sometimes say. Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. And it's a variation of a much older quote by the ancient Greek poet Archilochus, who wrote, "We don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training." In times like these, when we see attacks on civil and human rights right and left, and the news is filled with tragedies and suffering, our compassionate hearts are under immense pressure. And whether we are able to resist compassion fatigue and marshal our inner resources to offer a faithful response depends on our training as Unitarian Universalists, our ability to keep facing the pain, to remain effective and engaged depends on the mental, emotional, and spiritual preparation that we have done in order to help us respond the way that we feel called to respond. And we can do some of that preparation all alone, and to be sure, actually some of that work must be done on the personal level. But our congregation can also be a really vital resource in this work. It can be like, again, a sort of spiritual gym that we can all go to, where we all practice and train together and get strong together so that we will be ready to meet the needs of this world that we all love and care for, and that needs so much from us. My friends, there is so much pain in the world right now, but there's also so much kindness. So may we all remember that we are in our own circle of care. May we take care of our bodies, minds, hearts, and spirits, that we can keep offering ministries of compassion to all who need them in our world. And may we be a community of care that joins together to support our important work and to support one another. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. All right, let's go ahead and rise in body or spirit one more time and sing the final verse of our song, the we verse.
Please join me in a responsive reading by the Reverend Liz Weber. Your part is in bold. It takes all sorts of caring to create a supportive community.
We give thanks for those who provide us care and offer them our blessing.
We think of the comfort we find in another person's presence. Pastoral care team members and small group ministry leaders who listen when we are in pain.
We give thanks for those who provide us care and offer them our blessing.
We think of our material needs, a meal that arrives on our doorstep, a ride to an appointment, other help in hard times.
We give thanks for those who provide us care and offer them our blessing.
We think of the symbolic reminders of this community, like thinking of you cards.
We give thanks for those who provide us care and offer them our blessing.
We think of the network behind it all, the lay pastoral care associates, the care team volunteers, the resources we share.
We give thanks for those who provide us care and offer them our blessing.
Finally, we think of you who are not official lay leaders, but who have called your fellow congregants to check in on them, who have listened with an open heart during Sunday school or social hour, who have lent a helping hand to another member or friend in need.
We give thanks for those who provide us care and offer them our blessing.
For all the ways that we care for one another, we give thanks and offer our blessings. Amen. Before we close, we have a few minutes for ministries. These are brief highlights to help us stay connected with our wider congregational life. If you're new today, we'd love to get to know you. Please fill out a welcome card at the welcome table in the foyer and chat with our welcome ambassador in the gold sash, who can answer questions and help you get connected with us. If you're in need of a caring presence this morning, our lay pastoral care associates wearing sky blue sashes are here to listen. And we also have a new faith formation ambassador role. If you'd like to know more about our youth and children's programs, look for the person in the green sash. And could our welcome ambassador, lay pastoral care associate, and faith formation ambassador please stand or wave so we can see you? Thank you. This week's gatherings include the following: Starting Point class for newcomers on Tuesday, mindfulness meditation on Wednesday, children's choir, adult choir, and middle school book club on Thursday, Gathering of Men, and our Fall Work Day on Saturday. And next Sunday, Trunk or Treat. Also next Sunday during the service, we'll honor loved ones who have died, so please bring a photo for our remembrance table. And today, after the service, we have the Shining the Light on Solar Energy class for our 3rd through 8th graders, and our mortgage prevention focus groups, followed by the celebration of life for Geraldine Silk at 2 p.m. For full details, dates, times, and locations, see the back of your order of service, or check out the weekly e-newsletter, or you can always visit muff.org.
And I realize belatedly I left out of the script that we have some time for any announcements from the floor. I ask that you keep them brief so that anybody who needs to share has some time to do so. We'll go ahead and end at 11 sharp.
Hi, I'm Paul Snellgrove. I'm a member of the UU Faith Action New Jersey that Reverend Charles Laughlin, our former MUF intern minister, leads. And UU Faith Action needs our support in getting key proposed laws that UU support out of the New Jersey legislative committees so they can get voted on and hopefully passed, including, as some of you might have heard yesterday, if you were at the No Kings rally, the Immigration Trust Act. That support is mostly short, brief calls to key legislators. I don't have the material with me yet to help anyone make those calls, but I hope to have them available next Sunday. In the meantime, if you're at all interested in helping out, just email me at paulsnellgrove@gmail.com or call me. My contact info is in the realm. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Donna Perch, and I'm representing the service auction team this morning. The service auction kickoff is November 8th. It's not that far away, and this coming week is the last opportunity to put items into the service auction. There will be a table out during coffee hour where you can purchase your tickets for a fun party evening. We can also help you put your items into our service auction catalog so that everybody will be able to enjoy what it is that you're offering. So I hope to see you at the table, and we'll also answer any questions you have if you're new. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Schaeffler from the Meditation Group, and just reminding you that the Insight Meditation Retreat is on Saturday, November 15th. People can come from 9 to 5 or do a half a day, and you can register today during the social hour or on the MUF website. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Davis. I should have my green sash on. That's one I forgot to do. Anyway, and my name tag is in my car, so I'm super organized today. But no, I just wanted to lift up that next Sunday is the trunk or treat, and we're hoping that it's going to be an intergenerational experience. Feel free, if you have any questions about even what it is, people basically decorate their trunks, and then kids come and do trick-or-treating, but through the trunks. And we'll be in the parking lot over in the right by Chew Hall. And Chew Hall is a backup. If there's rain, then we'll scoot into there, and it won't be trunks, it'll be tables. But feel free to ask me any questions. There's also a link in the newsletter from this week, from the Wednesday e-newsletter, if you are interested in helping out. Thanks.
Good morning, my name is Brooke Donaldson. Let's do a little self-care. Let's do a little stretch. Can you reach your arms up to the, yeah, perfect. Let's do both arms. On December 13th and 14th is the Gift of Conscience Fair on the 14th and the Queers Maker Market on the 13th. Keep stretching. And I am looking for people to volunteer for the baking. Thank you. I will collect all your names at social hour. Thank you for bringing your hands up.
Trixie. All right, it's time for us now to bring our time of worship to a close, but although we extinguish our chalice flame, its light will continue to burn in our hearts. And as we go out into our daily lives, I leave you with the words by the Reverend James Galasinski. Our light, our faith, like a light, illuminates the path before us so that we can face hurt with love, cultivate compassion, live humbly in community, and confront despair with the awe of life. Though our flame is extinguished, our faith shines bright light before us. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace.